Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
When Irish skies are smiling, short is like a morning spring.
Welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. This is our St. Paddy's Day special BluePrint Power Hour today. For those of you out there with the touch of the Blarney Stone, you know, I had an opportunity to kiss the Blarney Stone, but after I saw the literally hundreds of people that kissed it before me, Elisa and I got up there and we said, nah, we'll pass. They were surprised. They were like, you waited in this line up this castle wall and now you don't want to kiss the Blarney Stone? And I says, no, I have no interest in kissing the 160 people that were in front of me on the way up here. I think they thought I was crazy. Welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. We will be answering your questions live and, of course, the ones that were sent in early on the BluePrint Power Hour today in just a moment. So please feel free to post your question during the show. Before we start, of course, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that's Legendary Foods, makers of the most amazing healthy snack. Less than 1 gram of sugar, under 5 grams of net carbs. Some have 3, some have 4, and some have 5. And 20 grams of high leucine, high-quality protein, and the new red velvet cake, tasty pastry. If you've heard me talk about it on this show every time you listen to the show and you haven't tried them, you are really doing yourself a great disservice because these are fast replacing protein bars because they taste delicious. They're fun to eat. The kids will eat them. You know, people tell me, oh, I don't like that protein bar. It doesn't taste this way. No one says they don't like the red velvet cake tasty pastry. No one. Because it's friggin' delicious. And it's not loaded with a ton of fiber. So it's really, really great. Now, you go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and you use the code SHR10 and you'll save 10% off all the good stuff at Legendary Foods. But if you're a cheapskate, you're one of those people that's been hearing me talk about the tasty pastry for so long, especially the red velvet cake one, and you just can't bring yourself to order them, then here's your chance to win a box. Listen for the secret word. It will happen during the commercial breaks today. Email the secret word to onair@superhumanradio.net and you're entered to win. We're giving away more than 1 box a day. Your odds are good. Take a chance and you'll be rewarded, I'm sure. And now, without further delay,
Blueprint Army, fall in line. It's time for the Blueprint Power Hour with Coach Rob Regish on the Superhuman Radio Network.
hey, Rob, how you doing?
Good, good. The temperature just got up to freezing here, so we have hopes for bigger and better things and warmer things.
I rode today. There's no rain slated for today, and so I rode the bike. That's why I've got this little thing that I wear around my neck when I ride, because sometimes I'll pull it over my mouth and my nose a little bit just to keep the cold air. But we're supposed to see a 64 today.
Yeah,
rode.
We were just a few days ago. We were very close to 70, but such is the Northeast. It's going to warm up, I'm told, in the next couple of days. But I can't get rid of winter fast enough, to be honest with you.
It's 62 right now. By the time I leave here, it'll be 65. I'll be riding to the gym to train legs. By the way, at the end of today's show, I want to tell you what I'm experimenting with. It's pretty cool stuff. So what's going on with you? Your back feels better. I know that, right?
Yeah, fortunately, the back is almost back to 100%. But curiously enough, I lost no training days, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, it just underscores the importance of a healthy body.
Absolutely. Resilient body. And as you age, you will compensate for the things that make your friends fall apart and stay home all the time, because we're used to dealing with discomfort. When you lift heavy weights, a lot of it is just dealing with the discomfort. And you have no idea the value of that as you age. I promise you. You'll say this to yourself, man, Carl was right. Okay, so let's get right on. Do we have any specials we need to talk about before we start answering questions?
No, I did want to thank everyone for their patronage on the Synthogen special. It did tremendously well. We have a huge new shipment of it coming in to make sure it's stocked. People bought a lot of adaptogen too. If you want that, I would say get it like right now, because it'll be gone in a day or two. But I just wanted to thank the audience. It was a great special, and we had great participation.
Okay. First question comes from Lenny Giles. He says, I've heard you discuss buying and using high-quality protein powders like Thrive. Realistically, though, how much muscle can I expect to grow using them?
It's a great question, because there's a lot of anecdotal evidence around you, right? I mean, who doesn't use a protein powder? And so the honest answer is it depends. It depends on many different things. For example, how much protein are you getting right now from whole foods in your daily diet? If you're not eating much, period, and you're maybe getting, Joe average 50 to 60 grams of protein a day, then yes, enough of the right protein powder is going to make a huge difference. I can remember bumping my protein up in college and the difference that it made, and it was substantial. Why? Because I really wasn't eating enough from whole foods. Now, if on the other hand, you weigh 200 pounds, you're already getting 200 grams of protein a day from your diet, then the honest answer is it's not going to be a hell of a lot more. You can have 200 grams from whole protein or 200 grams from, high quality whey and casein. You're probably going to grow about the same amount of muscle.
Right.
The issue in my mind has always been this: hitting a gram per pound of body weight of protein with whole foods is difficult to do and expensive. Okay. Not to mention, protein foods don't travel as well as their carb counterparts. So in that case, it is not uncommon where using a high quality protein powder certainly makes life easier, and it makes getting enough protein much, much easier and more efficient. Now, on the broader issue of protein and how much per day, and is it a gram per pound, you might be surprised to hear me say this. I do not subscribe to the high protein all day, every day mantra like a lot of lifters do. And in large part, that was due thanks to Leo Costa, who in 1989, I think, wrote Bulgarian Burst Training. And in there, he discussed basically a protein deprivation diet.
Well, we called it, the Bulgarians called it protein fasting.
Yeah.
No protein for like 2 to 3 days.
Right. And so I can't recall the exact number of days, but I think you're right.
It was a minimum of 2 days. It was no protein for 2 days, sometimes 3.
Right.
And they claimed that it stimulated a protein synthetic rebound when you reintroduce protein in the diet that actually added more muscle than had you eaten that same amount of protein across the 3 days.
Right. And so regardless of the mechanism, I noticed to my great surprise, it seemed to work and work really well. Later on, I would take that same technique and tweak it a little bit, timing it with exercise and a few other particulars. And, that was the BluePrint famine phase. And to this day, I still get emails about that part of the program and how surprised people are at, hey, this is just incredibly counterintuitive. But then, the next week or two after that, they're writing me about how well that worked. And curiously enough, how a lot of people actually, crave that phase of the program. Essentially what it is it's a short-term, right, detox depletion phase. And people just felt better doing it on a more regular basis. So later on, I read where even before Leo, Vince Gironda was experimenting with these protein fasts and prescribed it occasionally for his students. It was not his most popular dietary twist, but it was there. Today, curiously enough, you don't hear much about it, and that's a real shame in my opinion, because if nothing else, you should experiment with it for 2, 3, 4, 5 days to see how your body responds to it, right? Worst case, it doesn't make any difference. Best case, it does, and you get better results from less protein powder. So in any case, that's my position on protein powder. Use the highest quality that you can get, thrive, and experiment timing it with exercise. One other quick note, you've probably heard me in the past recommend Ultra Peptide 2.0 as another very good whey casein mix. It was brought to my attention that unfortunately it looks like they've gone out of business.
Yeah.
So
Dave's company, right?
Yeah, and
I still keep in touch with him. We text once in a while.
He's the greatest guy, man. Yeah. I mean, he has done a lot, not just for regular athletes, but other people that deserve it. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, Dave's a great guy. So I just want to put a finer point on this discussion, because what you're talking about is leveraging an evolutionary gift that we see in everything from dosing growth hormone to taking fish oil. And it's the phenomenon of scarcity and abundance. So various things have top level jobs, let's say, like growth hormone has a top level job, and then it has all these other jobs too. Fish oil has a top level job, and then has all these other jobs too. When you take the same dose day in and day out, you don't see the beneficial effects of the top level job of anything as given the same usage, same dosage, same number of grams of protein, whatever, same number of grams of fish oil, as if you stagger it. So if you decide that I'm going to take 10 IUs of growth hormone a week, instead of taking 2 IUs, 5 days a week, take 3 on Monday, take 4 on Wednesday, take 3 again on Friday. You see greater growth from that. We learned that from idiopathic short stature studies in children who were giving growth hormone to help them grow. The same dose, the same weekly dose, but by staggering and using a random dose, daily dose pattern, but achieving the same total dose over the course of a week and a month, the children who got the varying dose, they saw greater growth from the same dose. We see that Alex Leaf wrote a great blog post on superhumanradio.net. If you take the same dose of fish oil every single day, your body goes, wow, it's abundant. We don't need it just for these top level jobs of resolving inflammation. Let's use it as energy. We're getting so much. So your body doesn't store it and use it to turn off inflammation. Instead, it uses it as a substrate for cellular energy, and you burn it off. That's why, and when you think about it, we never had the same dose day in and day out. You probably ate a salmon or two one day, maybe a week later you ate another one. So we get these boluses. So when you're talking about protein is the same thing. If you're eating protein every day, the same amounts, your body's going to use more of it as energy. It's going to burn it off. It's going to convert it. It's not going to use as much for the synthetic response to the workloads you're doing. So periodically doing a protein fast, actually, from an evolutionary standpoint, is a very sensible thing to do.
Yeah, the body's an amazing thing, isn't it? And it goes on everywhere, like you said. It's incredible.
The next question comes from Eric Watts. Creatine question here. What kind do you use? How much? And do you ever cycle off of it?
Yeah, so here we go, right? Bodybuilding's most well-known and probably most used supplement. So there's a lot to unpack here, so I'll take it one by one. Usually, in the big picture, I will rotate 3 different types of creatine depending upon my goals. I have micronized creatine monohydrate, I have creatine hydrochloride, and crealkaline. And so 3 different types. Well, few things first. Micronized creatine mono is undoubtedly the cheapest and most well-studied of the 3. The only problem is that for me, once I start going over 3 grams a day, I put on a lot of water. And that's not just a cosmetic issue with me, especially these days, because most of my training is slanted towards body weight work. So every extra pound, even if it is, hanging out in the muscles as water, makes my body weight stuff more difficult. So accordingly, I will switch over, for example, to using crealkaline for 4 to 6 weeks at right around 1,500 milligrams a day. That gives me a boost in strength and fullness without the water weight, without the moon phase that I tend to get with mono. Although admittedly, not the big, 9 to 10 pounds on the scale weight gain that would have really jazzed me when I was younger. I don't get that with crealkaline. Once that's kind of run its course, I switch over to Progenadrex for 4 to 6 weeks, which contains the creatine hydrochloride, which is similar to crealkaline in that you are able to use far, far less of it and get roughly the same results. You're getting around 2,000 milligrams a day in servings of Progenadrex. It's probably the best compromise of the 3 types, in my opinion. Although that certainly could be due to other stuff in the Progenadrex. And I'm thinking about the anacyclus in it that helps your body suck up more carbs into the muscle, that sort of thing. But on that amount of creatine hydrochloride, I get a noticeable bump in size and strength and virtually 0 water. No loading necessary, doesn't upset my stomach, none of that stuff. The strength increases are probably what are most notable. I notice that in week 2 or certainly by week 3, that my visits to the gym become very happy affairs because I'm a lot stronger, or at least can crank out more reps. Now, after that's run its course, I will go anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks without creatine, sometimes longer, and let levels fall back to baseline. Now, I have read where there's no reason to cycle creatine, and that may be so. You could stay on it forever. That is not, though, how I do things, generally speaking, with most supplements. The only exception being ephedrine. I like to cycle them because I do believe you're better able to judge the effects that they are having. And in some cases, the body utilizes it much more efficiently in a lot of cases. One last point, take it, no matter what type of creatine that you're using, it is best taken post-workout. All of the studies, multiple studies now have shown post-workout is when it gets utilized the best, and the most creatine phosphate is stored in the muscle. So those are the products, and that's the timing. It's good stuff. What can I say? For a lot more than just building muscle.
If you are posting a question, we will get to it. We'll get to all the questions. I see some of them showing up here. We're just going to go on with this next question, and then we'll take a look and see what's waiting out there.
Yep.
Doug Summers says, what do you think about ginseng? Some recent research seems to show it has promise and talks of its picking up on the board. Talk of it as picking up on the boards. Never heard you talk about it much. So what do you think of it? You have talked about it. You've talked about ginseng.
Yeah, I think I can't recall exactly what context.
I want to say last month we talked about ginseng and ginsenosides and.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
It could be. I couldn't recall what context I spoke about it in, but be that as it may, ginseng, if you ask the general public, they've heard of ginseng. It's probably the best known adaptogen, but unfortunately, they are only familiar with what I call this crummy gas station ginseng, right? That these places carry. And they usually have it next to the register. My first experience with the quality stuff came in the early 90s. Mass had some product that had a high quality Korean red ginseng in it. And to be totally honest, I didn't pay it much mind. Wasn't expecting much. Why? Because, I had been using ephedrine. Big surprise. Now, having said that, I can vividly recall the first time I took the stuff. I got in the shower. Why? Because, I had been using ephedrine.
Sorry about that.
And then
by accident. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And then things really picked up from there, right? I got a very distinct stimulant type rush from it. Now, having said that, it feels different than lots of ephedrine or lots of caffeine or DMAA, to the point where it's difficult to describe. You really need to feel it for yourself. There's no fudging it, though. I did measure my heart rate, and that jumped many beats per second. So it certainly had that effect. Ginseng, though, it suffers the same cardinal sin that most adaptogens do, which is to say low quality, lousy versions that contain little to none of the active ingredient, in this case, ginsenosides. And I may have mentioned it before, science is now showing and identifying at least, let's say, a half a dozen subvarieties of ginsenosides, which they've labeled RG1, RB1, just goes down the list. What makes those exciting is this. Some studies have shown some specific ginsenosides actually bind to the androgen receptor, okay? And they tell the cell nucleus to ramp up muscle growth, or at least turn on certain genes related to it. That they know because of animal studies. No human ones yet that I know of, but I wouldn't doubt if those are underway. It does hold some promise due to the fact, if nothing else, that these ginsenosides are not structurally similar to testosterone. So, and why is that important? Well, it's important because the way they worded the Anabolic Steroid Controlled Something or Other Act in 2014 says, if anything even looks like testosterone or is purported to work like testosterone, via the same mechanism, they can arbitrarily pull it off the market.
Well, and I just had Anthony Roberts on talking about the evolution of steroid laws, and actually the newest legislature says it doesn't even have to be anabolic. They could just decide arbitrarily that they're against it, and they can pull it off the market.
Yeah, the great sin seems to be something that grows muscle. Imagine that. then it becomes evil, and they're going to ban it. But anyway, in the case of these ginsenosides, because of their structure, and what they do, docking at the androgen receptor, to me, it sounds almost like a natural SARM, at least in concept and function. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here a little bit, because none of this has been shown to do jack yet in humans. I would expect that there would be significant bioavailability issues. maybe some other factor that's related to its poor absorption or effectiveness. Why do I say that? Because almost every compound, it seems, like ursolic acid, that is purported to turn on muscle building genes seems to fail in the real world for one or more of those reasons, right? A lot of these things look great on paper, don't work in the real world. Is that going to be the case here? Time will tell. The honest truth is that we're going to have to wait and see. If you want to be an experiment and try this stuff, it is a pretty expensive experiment at this point. Why? Because isolating and getting those exact precise ginsenosides into a product is not going to be cheap. It's not going to be easy to make it bioavailable. It's not going to be easy, period. It's going to be pricey, and consumers will end up paying through the nose like we always have. So until we figure out if they work to build muscle, I would keep my use of ginseng to a strong Korean red and experiment with using that solo, or if necessary, with a little bit of caffeine in a pre-workout context. Ginseng has always been a very interesting and in some cases contradictory supplement. But on the other hand, it's also stood the test of time, which means the high quality stuff is doing something. Whether or not that something is worth it to you, whether it's worth the money, only you can judge that.
Back in the day, it was considered a tonic, and overall had a beneficial effect to the human condition in general.
Right.
In fact, Kentucky and Virginia have large crops, wild, that grow.
American ginseng, yeah.
And people have died over. I mean, ginseng is like, if you have a mountaintop or a hill that you tend to go to find your ginseng, and you find somebody moving in, people have been shot. Like, hey, this is my ginseng, and it's growing wild. But like, maybe it's on somebody's land, or maybe it's unspoken that this is my corner. You know what I mean? This is my corner to sell drugs. This is my mountain. People have been shot over. Ginseng has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years now.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's a great story.
Supposedly, in Appalachia, they call ginseng man root, because when you pull it out of the ground, it looks like it has 2 arms and 2 feet and a midsection that connects the 2 feet to the 2 arms.
Yeah.
They call it man root.
Yep.
And Appalachia is known for growing some of the best ginseng in the world. In fact, they give competition to the Koreans when it comes to ginseng. Let's get this question up here. We got a couple here. So first of all, Benjamin said it's a salt. I'm not sure if he was talking about crealkaline or something at that point in time. If you want to put up a little bit more context, we'll be happy to include that in the discussion. Robert Thompson says, what do you think about knees over toes guy? He's talking about Mark Bell. I walk backwards 15 minutes a day as a warm-up, challenging. So Mark and I just had this conversation. I was actually using knees over toes on my vibration plate. Very, very effective. I think the magic with knees over toes and why it may fix a lot of knee problems is because as we age, or our training gives us impaired mobility in our ankles. You'll start to develop knee problems if you lose mobility in your ankles. So doing knees over toes fosters that forward flexion on the ankle and stretches the compensatory muscles and allows the walking pattern to come back to its natural positioning. People compensate for the lack of ankle mobility by splaying their feet or by shortening their stride and making the knees do more of what the ankles should be doing. And they can't, because the knees are designed to only flex in one direction, but the ankles, they're orbital. They can flex in every direction. So I believe there is something to it. And it really sucks because we've had for decades people telling us when we squat, you don't let your knees get out in front of your feet. That's complete bullshit. That's like saying ignore your anatomical design and do it this way instead. But I think there is something to it. I think that it's really good. And you've been a big proponent of walking backwards up hills for years.
Yeah, and I think I think I've discovered that quite by accident. As I retooled my training towards calisthenics, when I started simple body weight squats, I could not keep my feet flat. My heel would come up, right? So I'd be on the balls of my feet. After a month of doing those, I can squat perfectly fine, flat-footed, ass to ankles. It's a big difference, and I would encourage people to videotape themselves squatting with a barbell, and then body weight squatting, and come back and let's talk about ankles over, right?
Yeah, because it's funny. So I got on my vibration plate, and I squatted down, and I naturally squat down the way I squat, the way Louis Simmons teaches people to squat. Your ass goes out first, like you're looking for a chair behind you. But that sets you up to have the lower part of your leg pretty much stay perpendicular to the floor. But then I tried getting down on my vibration plate by moving my knees out first instead of my butt, and getting my knees to go out over my feet. It's a completely different movement. And it's hard to do when you've been programmed not to do it with 500 pounds on your back. It's like all of a sudden, this is the way you do it. And it's not natural. If you look at an Asian grown man who's going to squat down and take a rest, his knees go out over his feet really, really far. So we actually in this community give up that flexibility in our ankles. So here's something really interesting. Patrick Rogers says we have a season to dig it in Virginia. He's talking about man root. He's talking about ginseng. And I would imagine that the ginseng from Virginia and Kentucky have to be some of the best in the United States, at least. I don't know if it compares. And then also, Robert Thompson pointed out that the knees over toes guy was interviewed by Mark Bell and recommended by Joe Rogan. I was texting with Mark. He was asking me what I thought about the knees over toes interview. And I only listened to a small thing that he did for Instagram that he did himself. Knees over toes guys would be a great interview. I'll get him on. I'll get somebody to reach out to him. I just don't like to interview people after somebody else interviewed them. I know it's really weird. It's like, I like to interview people for the first time and then let other people interview them. If somebody's already interviewed them, I don't know. I shy away from it, but I'll have them on for sure. Cool. Let's get this other question out of the way, and then we'll be stepping into a break.
Yep. This
one is for you. Should CSIS extract be cycled? I've been taking it daily for the last 4 months. It made an amazing difference in my joints and neck. Thank you, Rob.
The short answer to your question is maybe you might be surprised to hear no. I think if you have joint issues and you're using CSIS, and CSIS is making a difference for you, you should absolutely keep taking it. You'll find, relative to what I was saying before, if you came off or cycled off, you would find out real fast what a difference CSIS is making. So CSIS would be one where I tell you, continue to take it. The only thing you might want to try to do over time is to lower the dose progressively to find your minimal effective dose. And that's going to vary by product. I've got one, or I simply take 2 caps a day, and I think that's 1,200 milligrams. It is every bit as strong as the 4,500 that I was using before.
I love Patrick Rogers, and I don't say that about a lot of guys. Patrick is he is completely self-sustaining. He makes his own soap. He butchers his own beef. He grows his own vegetables. He is exactly what more of us in the United States need to be like. Plus, he's a super strong MF. Competed and was part of the American Strongman Corporation for a long time. He said in 2020, ginseng was going for $160 a pound green and around $500 a pound dried. That's why people get killed over it. I told you. I've heard of I was first introduced to ginseng in the Foxfire books, which were all compiled by a group of students from some university about all the secrets that the Appalachian mountain people know. How to make their own soap, how to make their own cures, how to make their own instruments. And there's a whole chapter about ginseng and all the great things that it can do for you. That's I learned about it. And that whole, all the Foxfire books were done in the Appalachian. Dave Rambat says, I take 1,000 milligrams. I guess he means a day. Is that a good dose?
Yeah, it's actually on the low side. So I would tell you go with 800 for a week or two, just to assess your tolerance, and hopefully it works, and then you can save some money. If not, 1,000 milligrams a day is a nice dose.
I sit tight. I'm sorry.
Very affordable.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we have more questions from the live audience. We have more questions that were sent in earlier. Sit tight. We'll be right back.
TaylorMade Health is focused on making sure you're able to perform and look your best. They are a leader in game-changing supplements and cosmetic products. Whether you want to increase strength, expedite recovery, facilitate soft tissue repair, or reduce deep wrinkles, TaylorMade Health has you covered. TaylorMade Health is also the home to Dr. Seed's products such as BPC, BPC Plus, and the Chill Pill. All of my listeners can now get 20% off their first order with code TRY20. That's TRY20. This code can even be used on subscription orders. Visit shrnetwork.biz/try20 today and use code TRY20 for 20% off your first order. Getting a massage post-workout is a proven strategy to facilitate better recovery. Getting to massage therapists can be difficult and expensive, especially in these times. The solution is the Meteor, a heated massage ball from Milestorm. Reduce pain and soreness and expedite recovery with the Meteor's research-backed vibration settings and therapeutic heat. It's convenient for travel and works on any body part. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Meteor and use code SHR15 for 15% off and free shipping if you buy 2 or more. Start recovering better today. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today. Are you ready to change the way you age? Of course you are. That's why you're here. Juvicel is a new first-of-its-kind dietary supplement that includes 10 key research-backed ingredients shown in studies to support lifespan. Things like resveratrol, fisetin, quercetin, pterostilbene, sulforaphane, turmeric, all in a single dose. You may have some of these ingredients already, but Juvicel is the first to combine them all into a single product to support your lifespan. It's vegan, non-GMO, and sustainable. Live better longer with Juvicel. Go to shrnetwork.biz/live better. Use code SHR and save 20% off today. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor? Strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. Epigenome.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brains finally meet.
Welcome back. So the next question comes from Robert Heenan. He said, I used to use a test booster called Fuzu, F-U-Z-U, by Syntrax Innovations. That stuff worked great, but I can't find a comparable product today. It had tribulus, but 2 other plants in there too. That where's it coming up? 2 that I can't remember which. Is there anything like it out there right now? You know what the funny thing about this is? Before you answer, Rob.
Yeah. Well,
how did he know it worked great? Did he get pre and post testosterone levels checked? Or did he? Good.
It's a great question. I suspect it has to do with what a lot of people get from trib, which is their libido does increase. Their erections are better. They may feel more pumped up in the gym, and there are very valid reasons why that actually may be happening. But he also brings up a really interesting product. Fuzu is not something that you heard about, likely most people. Originally, it was Syntrax's answer to Biotest's Tribex, which was their, and still is, I think, their tribulus product, right? So each one of them is claiming to be the best for various reasons. And the story goes, in the process of finding a tribulus that was truly standardized to what he felt were the active ingredients, phenysterols, okay? Derek Cornelius of Syntrax discovered that these furostenolic saponins were even more plentiful in 2 other herbs. One of those you know of, fenugreek. The other one's a little more obscure these days, Dioscorea deltoidea. Ultimately, he used all 3 of those in Fuzu and standardized the serving size to right around 450 milligrams. I think it was, 450. So 150 milligrams of furostenolic saponins from each plant, which was a pretty generous dose. It may have been the highest on the market then and now. At that point, however, Biotest took Tribex in a different direction. Their take on things was that it was the protodiazin, which is a furostenolic saponin, but is one of many, and they standardized their product for this protodiazin. I can tell you, I used plenty of both. I think both were quality products, but I considered Fuzu to be far and away the better product. Biotest, meanwhile, got flooded with not so nice emails about how this new Tribex didn't hold a candle to the old stuff, and they went back to the old formula real fast. It didn't surprise me though. Why? Because tribulus, fenugreek, Dioscorea they're a lot more than just protodiazin. If you ever used Fuzu, then you probably remembered it. In particular, what you would remember would be the smell. Because due to the highly concentrated fenugreek that he used, it smelled, and it made you smell like maple syrup. All right. Not the worst thing in the world, but it's kind of funky, right? Even today, that's true, by the way, of fenugreek. High quality fenugreek should carry that signature scent of maple syrup type smell. Anyway, Syntrax later on was sold, and at some point, the new owners and the new company simply stopped making Fuzu, which is a real shame because it really did seem to work insofar as sex drive, training drive, and hunger. I remember being a lot hungrier, and that's in the research too. Furostenolic saponins, you can find studies showing improvements in many different things that lead to more efficient muscle building, I'll call it. I do absolutely believe that nitric oxide levels are maximized when using a product with these saponins in them. And there's plenty of research on that too. So with respect to the Fuzu knockoff, I vaguely remember it. I want to say that the company SAN, S-A-N, I don't know if they're still in business, had that kind of copycat Me Too product, but that sadly looked to be discontinued too. Personally, if you want to try to recreate this today, I would stack a high quality tribulus along with, I would look for Sabinsa's Fenusterols. That is their standardized fenugreek. I believe it is standardized for 50% furostenolic saponins. It is difficult to find solo. I've looked for it. You'll find it as part of several multi-ingredient products. Much more difficult to find it standalone. But then again, Sabinsa is a great company and very customer friendly. I don't know if they still do this, but they gave me like 10-gram samples of fenugreek and piperine or bioperin, all sorts of stuff way back when. And it was potent stuff. I still remember it to this day.
Did you tell them you were a formulator at the time?
No, I wasn't a formulator at the time. I mean, this goes way back, and they sent me a 70% furostenolic saponin from fenugreek, and I'm telling you, that stuff was every bit as good as sildenafil. I know that's a big claim, but man, that stuff, it was really potent stuff.
The next question comes from Andrew Barker. He says, I'm getting up there in years and more into health supplements. What do you recommend I take or someone over 40 takes? I'm on HRT, by the way. Not sure if that makes a difference.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna throw a little disclaimer up here. Okay, first, what I'm about to talk about is what I use. That may or may not be applicable for you. So what follows are kind of each product and a little color commentary on each. I use CSIS that we just got done talking about, 1,200 milligrams a day in the morning. I use that for tendon and joint integrity. I also use Tranquilligen, which gives me curcumin, ashwagandha, and rhodiola, and also astaxanthin. Those things, those 3 herbs alone, never mind the astaxanthin, do a lot of very good things in terms of overall health, stress reduction, antioxidants, et cetera, et cetera. They're there, in my mind anyway, to guard against stress. And overall, it's also an excellent anti-inflammatory, probably largely related to the curcumin. I also do 1.5 grams of vitamin C twice a day, simple ascorbic acid most of the time. If I feel anything coming on, I immediately switch over to liposomal vitamin C and load the hell out of it. Fortunately, haven't had to do that lately, but that's my vitamin C protocol. I also use 800 IU of natural vitamin E. This is the D tocopherol, not the synthetic DL. There's also a product, I'm not using it now, but I need to reorder it. It came with the additional tocotrienols. And so that goes down the hatch every day. TMG, trimethylglycine, I use 750 milligrams twice a day, primarily for its, benefits, methylation benefits. TMG will also nicely knock down homocysteine levels, which if you're on HRT, I would imagine most HRT docs, mine certainly does, wants to see your homocysteine levels, within range. TMG will really lower them if they're up there. B vitamin complex also has a role in methylation and lowering homocysteine. Obviously, it's important for other reasons, but I take a simple B complex twice a day. I do not use fish oil. Given my wonderful wife, at least twice a week makes me salmon. If she didn't, it would certainly make this list, right? It's usually the first thing when most people get into their general health supplements. I also use 200 milligrams of alpha lipoic acid or 100 milligrams of the, I believe, more potent R isomer. Given it is both a fat and water-soluble antioxidant and can regenerate other vitamins, like the vitamin E that I just discussed.
And what's more important about R-ALA, just for a second, is not its antioxidant value, but 600
to 1,600 milligrams of our ALA taken a day across 3 doses can completely reverse insulin resistance in a type 2 diabetic person in as little as 4 weeks.
It's prescription in Europe for that purpose, right?
I don't know. That could be.
I think it is.
But, when we talk about insulin resistance, there's a lot of people out there say, well, the older you get, the more likely you are to develop insulin resistance because cells don't work right, blah, blah, blah. Everybody should be taking our ALA after 40. I take 450 milligrams a day. I take 250 milligrams 3 times a day of the liposomal from Live On Labs. And I also take the capsules, another 500 milligrams of the stabilized sodium version from Pure Nootropics. So I'm getting 1,500 milligrams, 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams of our ALA a day. And I can tell you something. I started doing this because of the tingling in my feet, my hands, and I've come to the conclusion that even though I'm lean and don't look like it, and my blood work's going to show this, I'm possibly insulin resistant. So think about that for a second. If I could be insulin resistant, how many other people? I've talked to doctor friends of mine and say, hey, aging, for some reason, we're not sure why, insulin resistance starts to kick in. It could be why, as we get older, we get fatter. Our ALA is the answer. Everybody over 40 should be taking our ALA because of its effect on insulin sensitivity. Forget about all the other stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's great stuff. Continuing on here, I do 100 micrograms of K2 for its ability to prevent calcification of the arteries. I will be getting a test in the near future to validate that. So I'll certainly share those results with you as to how much calcium I have build up or not, as the case may be. Glucosamine, I use GLTC 2000 or Actistatin, and boy, is that shaping up to be a whole lot more than a joint supplement, right? I mean, just the research on life extension it's eye-watering. Green tea, standardized for EGCG. I get around 400 milligrams of EGCG, primarily for the polyphenols and the antioxidant benefit. I have, however, since moved on to a marine product that I use that is much stronger. It has a lot more polyphenols, beta-glucans, etc. Its antioxidant function is off the charts. And the best part is, instead of like a 30-minute half-life for EGCG, it has a 14-hour half-life, making once-a-day dosing practical. Melatonin, 5 to 10 milligrams a night for the many benefits that it conveys. Your show on that alone is worth the price of admission. Ginger, another one of your suggestions. Staple, 1.5 grams a day. No less than 5% gingerols and shogalls, I think, is the powder that I have. This is the exact same product, same stuff that literally made my wife's skin cancer disappear in front of my eyes. And
what do I know? I'm just some schmuck who does a podcast.
Right. Canthaxanthin, just 60 milligrams a day with food. I don't get as much sun as I used to, but the stuff stays in the rotation, okay, to guard against skin damage.
And DNA damage in the skin. It protects against DNA damage in the skin for whatever reason. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think beyond that, there are other benefits, antioxidant benefits, but that's another story for another time. So that's the laundry list, I guess, of what keeps me healthy inside and out, plus layers in all sorts of preventative stuff, which I've always been big on. Within the last year, I have also added a baby aspirin for a whole slew of reasons. And suffice it to say, for the money, it's some of the best protection against various things that
take it before bed.
You can buy. No, I actually use it during the day when I take
it before bed.
Yeah.
Most people have heart attacks in their sleep when they die from a heart attack. If you're awake, you get to the hospital. If you're asleep, you sleep through it and you die.
Okay.
So taking it as a prophylactic, just in case you have some sort of embolism or thrombotic event in the middle of the night, you know, I mean,
Yep.
that's the best time to take it.
Yeah, I'll switch my dosing then, no problem.
Yeah, and it tastes good too. You take the St. Joseph's, they taste good, like orange. I love it.
I didn't get the orange one. I just have the little teeny tablets, I guess.
Yeah.
If aspirin does, though, one other note: if aspirin does tear your stomach up, white willow bark is your go-to natural solution.
That's
So
what I use.
right, that's where they found the active in aspirin, salicylic acid, and it's a little easier on your stomach and your system. So that's it.
I want to mention something. So Victor Nilsson says probably because of heavy metals, mercury have a 30 to 60 half-life. I tend to agree with you, Victor. In fact, I have a theory of aging called metabolic debris accumulation. Iron, heavy metals, proteins that weren't broken down and removed. We know that glyphosate mimics glycine and the body can't get rid of it. I agree with Victor. In fact, I really believe that all of the phenotypical identifiers that we associate with aging are the result of metabolic accumulation of debris, including heavy metals. And we know that this leads to insulin insensitivity. So I am completely in agreement with you. In fact, I've tried to figure out what is it about 60-year-olds that like a switch flips, and we all live different lives, but yet the one thing that we can be assured of is that 60 years of metabolic debris is accumulated in each and every one of us. And I really believe that if science understood how to stimulate the body to remove this debris, which I know one of the ways is to donate blood. Everybody should be donating blood. But even if you don't have a problem with red blood cells, you should be donating blood just to get some of the dirt out of your body, I like to call it. But I agree with Victor. In fact, this is, I'm not a scientist and I have no education in any of these areas. But I'm convinced that senescent cells are the result of insulin resistance, and insulin resistance is the result of metabolic accumulation in the body. Here, let's see what he says here. Google blood donations, health benefits. Oh, I know. Never mind the form. I found the studies. I found studies that show that people who regularly donate blood live longer and tend to have fewer diseases. I tried to get somebody from the Red Cross to come on this show to talk about that, and they wouldn't. I thought, why wouldn't you come on the show and we can get more people to donate blood for a better reason to help themselves?
Yeah, I was just about to say, why don't we ever hear that? People live longer.
It's phenomenal. It's one of the best kept secrets, reducing the metabolic accumulation, reducing the iron overload. Ferritin, by the way, ferritin is not a good indicator of iron overload, Victor. Ferritin is a chaperone produced by the body to shuttle iron into tissue. One molecule of ferritin can hold anywhere from 1 to 60,000 molecules of iron. You can't look at ferritin by itself because people who are aware of this, if I took 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day for the next 5 days, my ferritin will go through the roof. I don't have to increase my iron consumption at all. A better indicator is something called total iron binding capacity, TIBC. It tells you how much iron is actually in the ferritin. So when taken with ferritin, TIBC gives you a better idea of what amount of iron you have in your body. Heavy metals, I'm not clear on, but yes, it's fascinating. This is something I really believe is linked to all of the disease states of aging that we suffer from. But that's another show. Let's do this. I want to take a break. We're going to do the blueprint tip of the day, and that after that, I want to tell you with a new training style I'm experimenting with, and I'd love some of you in the audience to give it a try and report back what you learn. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of the Blueprint Power Hour.
Are you you ready to change the way you age? Of course you are. That's why you're here. Juvicel is a new first-of-its-kind dietary supplement that includes 10 key research-backed ingredients shown in studies to support lifespan. Things like resveratrol, fisetin, quercetin, pterostilbene, sulforaphane, turmeric, all in a single dose. You may have some of these ingredients already, but Juvicel is the first to combine them all into a single product to support your lifespan. It's vegan, non-GMO, and sustainable. Live better longer with Juvicel. Go to shrnetwork.biz/live better. Use code SHR and save 20% off today. The power of light can be truly life-changing and an important element for every superhuman. Because of this, I want you to experience the power of award-winning Saluma light therapy. Saluma utilizes NASA research technology to improve health at the cellular level and is cleared by the FDA to effectively treat a variety of pain, muscle and joint conditions, as well as facial wrinkles and acne. Our entire team here at Superhuman Radio uses it. Its innovative shape-taking design allows for easy placement anywhere on the body. Choose from 13 different models. For an exclusive listener discount, go to shrnetwork.biz/Saluma. That's CELLUMA. And use code SHR10 to save 10% off of one of these award-winning devices. Folks, I'm pleased to announce that Pure Nootropics is now carrying the antioxidant alpha-lipoic acid in its bioidentical natural form as R-Ala. R-Ala provides protection in many areas and has even been shown to promote weight loss. Check out the interview I did on episode 2608 back in October to learn more. Our friends at Pure Nootropics have been bringing you great products and deals since 2013, and they have another one with R-Ala. Go to shrnetwork.biz/pure and use code SHR30 for a whopping 30% off. Level up. Go Pure. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today. As a listener of this show, you know how important your gut is to your overall health. Bioptimizers has a potent product to heal and repair your gut unlike anything else. It's called Leaky Gut Guardian. It's powered by patented IGY Max, an egg-based protein that enhances gut health, reverses antibiotic damage, and strengthens your immune system. Available in 2 delicious powders, vegetarian vanilla and chocolate carnivore. Simply mix it with your favorite beverage. Repair your gut and power up your immune system risk-free and save 10% off. Go to shrnetwork.biz/leaky gut. Don't delay. Fix your gut today. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor? Strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon.
This is the Superhuman Channel, doing reps with the weight of the world.
Welcome back. We have more comments we have to get to before we do the BluePrint the tip of the day. So first of all, Victor said he just started doing blood donations. That's good. He's going to do some laser light booster for 3 weeks. All these things are good. You got to experiment. But the blood donation, by far, is one of the most underestimated tools that people can use to improve health and longevity. Bear says, damn it, I forgot about daylight savings time. Sorry about that. I was wondering where you were. Victor comes back. Carl, what's your take on pegylated MGF? I'll answer that after the BluePrint tip of the day. And let's see, all this talk about longevity. So we'll get to those other things at the end because I want to talk about this new training style I want to share with you. So what is the BluePrint tip of the day, Rob?
The tip of the day is what some thoughts on what's changed in 36 years of doing this. You know, like I've done 1,000 times over the past 36 years, I walked out of the gym the other day with my son and his friend who I train. And I had a great workout too. But as I walked out with them, I marveled at the world of physical culture that they're inheriting now, because a lot of it is still the same, a lot of the same movements, the same people winging it every month in and month out. But there's also a lot that's new. And so what follows are just kind of some of my observations. We were in the car. I was bringing his friend home, and he relayed the story to us of trying this disgusting protein drink he had recently. And so I asked him which one, and he told me. I forget the brand name of it, but he bought it at the gym, took it right out of the cooler, and apparently the artificial sweeteners literally left a bad taste in his mouth, turned him off. And I told him, you should really consider yourself fortunate because I said my first experience with a powder, I think, was Joe Weider's Crash Weight Gain Formula #7, which made me wonder about formulas 1 through 6, because 7 was god awful. And I told him, hey, you're fortunate that stuff isn't still around. And then whenever I told him about Hoffman's protein from the sea, they were both laughing harder than I had ever seen. My son in particular, he's not a laugher, but man, he couldn't believe that. In fact, though, they thought I was joking. So I said, listen, go ahead, do what you guys do for everything else in the world. Google Hoffman's protein from the sea. Tell me what you find. And of course they did, and they found it. And for the rest of the ride home, they just stood there in disbelief that people would actually down a powdered fish product. So that's obviously a world of difference. Curiously enough, though, neither one, and they're both about 15 years old, neither one has asked about supplements yet. I would have expected at least a few questions by now, right? Because they're in the gym. I mean, they have plenty of them there up around the desk, and they walk by them all the time, but they don't pay them any attention, which I'm trying to figure out if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And so that remains to be seen. When I was their age, though, I can tell you this, I had a burning desire to understand everything that I could about lifting weights and diet and getting bigger and stronger. And I'm looking for that same singular laser-like focus from either one of them, and they don't have it. At least right now, they don't have it. And Nick's been doing it for 3 years, his friend for at least 2. It just doesn't seem to be there with most of these kids. And I think I know why. There is so much information clamoring for their attention that having a singular focus on anything is almost impossible, because between the games, the texting with friends, the streaming media, and God knows what else they've got, they can't focus like I did, at their age. At 15 years old, every waking moment, I was pursuing knowledge about this chosen endeavor, and they're not. And I honestly, I still find that bizarre. But that might just be me too. Interestingly enough, I showed them some pictures of top-level bodybuilders, and they just totally dismissed it. And I think the words "too much" came out of one of their mouths. I'm not sure which one. Those 2 words, "too much," probably should have entered my vocabulary a long time ago. Instead, too much for me was never enough. In just about everything. It didn't matter what it was, but especially lifting weights and food and supplements, etc. Had I understood that concept of too much and exercised it, it would have saved me a lot of trouble. Now, in terms of them, learning, they both take instruction well, and they'll both work hard, right, at whatever you tell them to do, if I expect that of them. Which is to say, to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure either one would be pushing themselves to the same extent if I wasn't around. And I'll also say this. I don't see many 15-year-olds at all lifting weights. And maybe just my gym, but it's the biggest gym in the area. It's a former Gold's gym. It's a Club Fitness today. It's by far the most popular one. I have yet to see, 15-year-olds are very, very few. Let me put it that way. So I think to a certain extent, they don't have it inside them yet to push themselves, right? To the same extent anyway, if I wasn't around. And that's something, again, that's very foreign to me. I never struggled with that. I had certain role models at that age who all sported tons of muscle. And that's something else that's different, by the way. Role models. These kids today have them, but they aren't what they used to be, at least as I remember it. My role models were professional athletes. You know who they look up to today? Elon Musk. I can't tell you how many times they're talking about him, and I've heard his name. He heads up Tesla, he heads up SpaceX, and God bless him. He's been very successful in those endeavors. But a businessman as a role model, I would have never, ever thought about that. Now, there are others that they discuss in glowing terms, although what their names are, they escape me. What I can tell you is these people they're tech gods to these kids. Their God is technology. And anyone that advances it is de facto, the Messiah. And at least right now, it's Elon Musk. The biggest difference that's taken place over the last 35 years, I would have to say, one, where people get their information, and two, this new culture of total transparency about steroid use, or at least a lot more than it used to be. The weights we lift and the movements we use are the same. People are still going to be bragging about how much they bench. The squat is still the king of leg movements. I don't see any of that changing, right? Nor will the supplement market change very much. There's still a poor substitute for anabolics, and that's how they're marketed. But it's this information saturation and the frank discussion about drugs that strikes me as so different. So 25 years ago, if you were using drugs, you denied it. You certainly never talked openly about it. Today, it's talked about in that gym as openly as, what you did for this, what you did when you went out this weekend. That might not be a bad thing, were it not for, still the illegalities involved. And speaking of that, it's still going on. A 40-year-old guy at our gym who was openly discussing and selling the stuff got popped recently. Controlled delivery, of anabolics to his Massachusetts home after the goods were flagged coming through customs at LAX. Now, I'm not saying this is a smart use of taxpayer funds. Far from it. But it happened, right? And I'm convinced loose lips sunk ships, at least in his case. So that's different. And then finally, information, where people are getting it and how much is out there. So thanks to the World Wide Web, anyone with a camera and an internet connection is an expert. You can go to YouTube today and see it. It's pathetic. There's some good information out there. There's a lot of bad. And I think really this is the biggest difference today. People getting bad information, and in particular, it leads to program hopping on steroids, pun intended. So, and if you don't believe that, try this. Google best bodybuilding program, like I did yesterday. In 0.62 seconds, it returns 63,100,000 results. Think about that. 63 million. Many of those complete bunk. You'd have better luck at the casino, right? Versus what these kids are up against today. So anyway, that's what I see as the biggest differences in what's changed. And I hope you've enjoyed that look at what's changed over 36 years. I don't know if I've got another 36. Hopefully I do. But I do know this: before I check out, I have a responsibility to make things better for the next generation. We all have that responsibility, right? So please keep that in mind, even as you reap all of the rewards and benefits that physical culture gives to you, and it gives to you every day. Learn, as they say, to pay it forward. It's important.
So we have a couple comments and questions we need to get through, and then I want to discuss something I've stumbled upon. It's very exciting, but it's very dull and mundane. I say this is the dullest training technique in the world that will get you the greatest results. But first, let's do this. Robert Thompson says bee pollen, used to buy it by the pound from local beekeepers. I don't know why he said that, but I wouldn't buy it, and I'll tell you why. It's virtually impossible to get organic bee pollen unless you have bees that are living in a big domed area and everything in it is organic. Bees fly away, they forage, they come back. And the real problem with bee pollen is it's laced with herbicides and pesticides, number one. Getting back down to Victor Nilsson. Bear with me. He asked me what my take is on pegylated mechanical growth factor. I don't like it. It's not natural. MGF is supposed to be around in the bloodstream for a very short period of time, 60 seconds, 40, it disappears quickly and it turns into other metabolites when it goes through the liver. Having a prolonged presence of mechanical growth factor is counter to how the body works. We know this. Look, people who use long-acting growth hormone secretagogues, like real CJC 1295 with DAC, like MK677, or even the long-acting growth hormone that was abandoned, I think, by Merck after they had so many problems with it in patients. Growth hormone is not supposed to be there all the time. It's supposed to pulse. And mechanical growth factor is the same thing. I am not a fan. I think you'll be better off just using 300 micrograms of real IGF-1 EC, which is what mechanical growth factor is, a couple times a day. You'll get better results if you're getting good results with pegylated. Retinol is for stem cells. Absolutely. Retinol, we talked about this a decade ago on this show. Retinol is required for stem cell differentiation. You take pluripotent stem cells, and in the presence of retinol and RNA and DNA transcription, they can turn into a liver cell, they can turn into a brain cell, they can turn into bone. But it takes retinol to cause the differentiation. Talked about that years ago on this show. One of the reasons I take 10,000 IUs of retinol a day. I had a guy come on the show and tell me retinol is a problem for humans, that we bioaccumulate it in our liver and it leads to diseases. I can't think of it. Grant something from Canada came to find out that he really had autoimmune disorders. He never tested for retinol. He just assumed because he was eating a lot of tomatoes, because of the beta carotenoids, which is purported to turn into vitamin A, that he had a problem with vitamin A. And he got a lot of people to abandon vitamin A. Stupid. I mean, he's one of the few guests on this show I've ever challenged. Because at the end of the discussion, he says, I said, so what were your vitamin A levels in blood when they became toxic? I didn't test for vitamin A in my blood. I said, so how did you know that retinol toxicity was real? He says, well, I was eating tomatoes every day. You can go back and listen to it. His last name was Genereux, E-A-U-X at the end, Genereux. And I said, so you made the connection that you're eating lots of tomatoes and plants that have a lot of carotenoids in them. And the science shows that the large portion of the population is almost impossible to turn those into active vitamin A. I said, so you just assumed that you were toxic from vitamin A. And I said to him, I said, you're absolutely wrong. And at the end of the show, I think I said to people, don't take this guy's advice, because vitamin A is responsible for stem cell differentiation. Absolutely. So that's all great. I'm glad you're having success with that. Vitamin K2, eat natto every day. You can get vitamin K2 from grass-fed milk, grass-fed beef. This is nonsense that vitamin K2 is so hard to find in the diet.
Let's see. I don't want to fish. It seems to increase bioavailability, but I'm going to pass on that. Robert Thompson says, MSM, methylsulfomethane, baby aspirin. I have cared for many patients after baby aspirin take. I don't know. I don't know what that
I would love to hear more about that. I'm not questioning it. It's good to know, right? All the positives and all the negatives. Insofar as MSM is concerned, it's turning out like glucosamine to be a lot more than a joint supplement. I'm looking at a number of studies here. MSM speeds up recovery after training. MSM, more growth hormone, IGF-1. MSM is a cortisol blocker. MSM is a muscle enhancer that sabotages cancer cells. It goes on and on.
We talked about glucosamine on this show for longevity. There's a very well done study. I think 60,000 people participated that showed that glucosamine extends lifespan. I mean, this is legit. This is legit research. So all these things are much more than we think they are. And that's why we have to stop pigeonholing everything. The body is so complex. The idea that one thing does one thing is nonsense. Okay, we have a limited amount of time left. So I did an experiment recently. I'm still doing it. I decided to go into the gym, pick a movement, one movement, and do it for 40 minutes, altering the weight, altering the grip, adding in some advanced techniques here and there, obviously using different weight and different reps. So, for instance, yesterday I went in, I did seated dips. I started at 130. I went up in 20-pound increments all the way up to 230, I believe it was, or maybe it was 240. And so it was 6 steps. Each weight I did for 2 sets, and I did to failure every single set. By the time I got to the 240, I was only able to eke out 2 reps. So I did 2 doubles, and then I head back the other way, 220, and so on, all the way back to where I started. So 6 sets, 6 movements down, 2 sets of each, 6 movements back up, 2 sets of each. And if I was done before the 40 minutes was up, then I threw in some statics, some pauses, some high rep burnout sets. I just played with it, but I did just the seated dip machine for 40 minutes straight. Now, record how much weight you handle, how many reps you do, come up with a weight total for 40 minutes, because adding density and achieving more weight in 40 minutes is your goal. But here's what I think it does for you. There are prime lifters in every movement in your back. There are prime lifters that do a lot of the work. 20%, 30% of the muscles really never even have to struggle against the weight. But when you do the same movement, pull down, same movement for 40 minutes, guess what? The muscles that get fatigued early start to pull back. They can't handle as much. And now all of a sudden, muscles that you never hit when you train your back have no choice but to start working hard. I have never experienced soreness and delayed onset muscle soreness for decades now, because I'm an avid trainer. Game changer. I did that the day before I did back. Today I'm going to go in and I'm going to do leg presses for 40 minutes, varying the weight on the way up and the reps on the way up, varying the weight on the way down and the reps on the way down, 2 sets of each for 40 minutes. That's all I'm going to do is that one movement. I predict my legs. I'm telling you something. I haven't felt like this in years. My shoulders, my back, doing those dips, my pecs, everything. Mm-hmm. I would like people in the audience to give this a try. Pick a movement, a push movement, a pull movement. It could be free weight. It could be a machine movement, whatever you want to do. Do it for 40 minutes. Set your stopwatch and do a set and progress. And keep progressing until maybe all you can do is 5 or 4 reps in a set. And then do one more set with that weight and then start heading back in the other direction. If you get done in 35 minutes, then peg a plate somewhere, whatever you're using, and do some high reps with statics, my triple statics, right? You push out you hold it. You come down a little, you hold it. You come down a little, you hold it. You come all the way down, you push out again. Use some of these advanced techniques to fill in the time. I promise you, you will come back saying that you haven't felt like this in a decade of training. One movement, 40 minutes, one movement.
It sounds like intensified ladders. You know, I've talked before about ladders and, you know, going up in reps, going down in reps, but adding things like statics and so forth.
Well,
Wow.
wait a minute, but who goes into the gym to train back and does one thing for 40 minutes? No, you do pull downs, you go do pullovers, you do bent over rowing. You're not hitting your back the same way. When you use the same movement for every single set, for every single rep, you hit your back completely. The muscles that, like I said, the muscles that do the hard work, they give up early. Now, all of a sudden, like I've never had my rear delts hurt like this. And I do rear delt work. Never, ever, ever. Because guess what? My back started to give in and my rear delts had to kick in.
Yeah.
Try it. One movement, 40 minutes. Try it. I guarantee it. Start light too. Start light. Because when you start getting into those weights that you usually do 8-10 reps with, and they're real heavy, you're only going to get 2 or 3 reps out of it by that time.
And so what do you feel like the next day?
I have soreness in my back and I have a pump. I have a pump. I feel like today I felt my traps from yesterday from doing those dips. You know, my traps had to stabilize my shoulders. My traps feel the dips from yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, just try it and tell me what you feel. Just give it a try. 40 minutes, one movement. One movement, 40 minutes. And play around. Change the rep, change the grip. Like I went, I did palms in, close grip on the way down, or way up and weight, but the way down the stack. And then I switched to the wide palms in bar and went back up this way. And then I did some statics with the under grip, you know, close where my biceps were more involved. Oh my God, my biceps are still pumped.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
Yeah. I will. We'll talk about it next week.
There you go. CoachRobRegish.com is the place to go, folks. If you want to learn more, there's a repository of information there that is second to none. Check it out. We'll see you tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Thank you for being here today. Let me get where's my music? What happened? Sorry about that. I'm not on top of things today. There we go.